We're talking about corruption this morning, and we know that corruption is something that's rife within our country. But did you know that corruption is the abuse of entrusted power for private gain? It hurts and affects everyone who depends on the integrity of people in position of authority. And on that basis, we're going to start a conversation this morning. And I have Dr. Roger Cranting, who is the advisor of governance of the Governance and Institutional Development Division. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good.
Good to have me here.
It is indeed.
Yeah.
Doc, why should we be fighting corruption?
Well, thank you once again to you, and also good morning to the viewers. Corruption is, in fact, if you do word count in Ghana and Africa and the rest of the world, is one of the most popular words you come across. Because corruption touches everybody. As you rightly said, corruption is when you abuse your office, your power for private gains. And therefore, $1 taken out of government coffers or the public money affect electricity, affect education, affect health. In this case, that means affect all the social services.
Yes.
And you know, the social services are the basic requirement for sustenance of life.
Yeah.
And since it's about sustenance of life, that means every human being will be affected. And therefore, corruption is very, very, very important. In fact, there's a lot of statistics about the level of corruption in Africa, in Ghana, in around the world. You know, like something like 10 to 20 billion money siphoned out every year from the continent. It affects integrity of public officials. It derived rural people, their basic rights. It affects education and all of. Okay. So it's a very serious topic and a very serious issue that we have to look at it seriously.
To the extent that Transparency International Corruption Perception Index that's released on a yearly basis. I believe in 2012 we were ranked 64th. At that point in time, we were at par with Lesotho. By 2013, I like this. They said there was a significant decrease. However, it wasn't significant, if you ask me. We went from 64th to 63rd. However, Lesotho went from 63rd to 55th. So they made a significant jump.
That's right.
We actually just budged along. What are the institutions that the Commonwealth is trying to empower and strengthen so that we can actually start fighting corruption effectively within our shores?
Yes. The United Nations agency responsible for crimes and drugs and crimes have a framework for fighting corruption. And within that framework, they identified anti-corruption agencies or institutions that should be the tool to fight corruption. And these institutions, particularly for our specific case in Ghana, are two, the SHRAJ and IOCO. Now, SHRAJ is an interesting institution because unlike most countries around the Commonwealth, where the three mandates are given to separate institutions so that they could concentrate and make and deliver on those mandates. SHRAJ have three of these mandates combined into one institution. That means corruption, ombudsmanship, and human rights. But within the Commonwealth, you have agencies responsible for human rights, you have agencies responsible for corruption, you have agencies responsible for ombudsman. My take on this is that either they will do minimally on these three institutions, or they may not do some of them very well.
Right, because they're overstretched.
That's right. Ideally, we should have had institution responsible for corruption.
Right.
But I think that is why IOCO also have come in, because the IOCO formerly Serious Fraud Office.
Yes.
So it's IOCO. So these are the two institutions that are responsible for leading the fight against corruption in our country. I must say that when I go to the Commonwealth Secretariat as a governance advisor, also with responsibility for anti-corruption within all the 54 Commonwealth countries, I started working around the 54. Then I realized that, look, why don't I put my money where my mouth is? So I focus on Africa.
Yeah.
And of course, one of the leading countries in Africa is Botswana in terms of being least corrupt country. For the past 30 years, they've been leading, maintaining that number one position. So they have the best good governance, they have the least corrupt country. So I started working with all of them. And what I did was that I will put a center called Commonwealth Africa Anti-Corruption Center in Botswana. Because largely I would have wished to put it in Ghana. But why I put it in Botswana is because Botswana government decided to support 50% of the total cost that the center will, it will cost the center to
significantly.
Yes. Yeah. So we put it there. And what we're doing there is that I also brought all these heads of anti-corruption agencies together, and we form an association or a network. Other countries who are not doing
as well.
too well, you bring them together, they share ideas, they speak the same language, they are confronted with the same issues. So if you're doing it well, tell me how you manage to do that. So that was the idea, and I brought all of them together, and it became a very successful association. Then I started also mobilizing support from UN agencies, UNDP, World Bank, Transparency International. In fact, as I'm speaking now, Transparency International, they are explaining to the heads how they rank, the methodologies they do. This morning from 9 to about 12. For the first time, the heads said they want to understand how they do it. Because some of them,
they're show them the formula.
How they do the ranking, and how it's impacting on countries. And so I brought all of them here. The co-founder of Transparency International, I brought him here. And all. So that is why. But my idea is that we should strengthen these institutions.
Indeed. Because
these institutions then will lead the crusade against corruption.
Okay, but I just want to take you back for a second then, because we were mentioning Shraj and Iyoko. Now, we mentioned how Shraj has these three bodies encompassed underneath one umbrella.
That's right.
Just in your opinion, just give me an advantage of this, if there is, and a disadvantage.
Of course, the advantage of this is that you concentrate your resources in one place.
Right.
Okay. And it makes more or less business case if we're looking at business.
Yes.
That means financial sense in terms of human resources and equipment and all that. So that is good. And also if your population and your economy size is small, you will go for that option.
Right.
The disadvantage is that as your economy increase, as the population increase, because I'm sure the time they set up Stride and all that, the population was much. Population increase, corruption increases, and therefore, what my experience is that as population increase, corruption increase with sophistication, you also have to have sophisticated institutions, and therefore you need to separate them.
Right.
In fact, if you take, like say, ombudsman alone, in most countries who are developed a little bit, they have different sector ombudsman. Ombudsman for police alone, ombudsman for health, telecom ombudsman, now you put all this one ombudsman, and you're giving 1/3 of the function to one agency. So they are overstretched, they are the cash strap. Then you go for human rights. In other countries, in Commonwealth countries, you have a whole commission on human rights. Human rights affect children, women, right of employees, and all that. So human rights is big.
Very big.
Child trafficking. So that also, you put it within 1/3 of this agency. Then you come to the almighty corruption, which is big. In fact, people even don't understand the difference between stealing and corruption. Because you see, stealing is a criminal offense. If this big mug is yours and I take it, I've stolen it. It's a police case. But corruption is not that. It's more sophisticated because we call it under the table. This kickback, there's no witness. So you need sophistication to unearth that, and you need different set of laws to do that. And again, you need a specialized institution. And you put all of them together under one, and the resources that you are giving them is not enough. They are not going to do much.
Well overstretched. Okay, I understand. Okay, now what's the strategy with the fighting of corruption going forward within the Commonwealth?
Yes, the strategy for us is that, again, as you rightly asked this very question, is that we should resource the institutions, and we should also look at the laws, particularly the procurement laws and the corruption-prone areas. Because in our side we have realized that procurement is one area that is prone to corruption.
Yeah,
that's all the kickbacks Then another area is procurement construction. Okay, constructing a piece of road, 1 kilometers road. I think our analysis is that it's very expensive in Ghana here to construct a piece of road than in anywhere in the world.
Wow!
So that means the cost is
inflated.
It's a little high. So that is another area. Then there's also another area is minerals area, natural resources. Is another area. But I must also say that there are two categories of types of corruption. We have the grand corruption and we have the petty corruption. The petty corruption is what is pervasive. Everybody is doing it, from the messenger to the clerk. You go to the ministry, you have to put money on the table or before they get you the file. Everybody is trying to make ends meet, because in Ghanaian parlance, ends are not meeting. You say it's a take-home pay. It's supposed to take you home for the whole month, but you take you home of only 2 weeks. So the remaining 2 weeks you have to find ways and means of
bonuses
getting
and additions.
So those are the petty crime, and in affecting
everybody.
Service delivery is big time. That one, if you ask me, I can understand why they do that, but I don't subscribe to it, because the fact that you are poor doesn't mean that you should be corrupt. I've seen poor people who are upright and they live within their means. So that one, even though I could understand why there have been petty corruption all over the place, affecting flow of service and all that, is hurting the economy.
And it's still not an excuse.
It's not an excuse. But for me, the one I don't understand is the grand corruption. These are people who are well paid, well resourced. They have all the basic needs. They have their house, they have their cars, and they take so much money from the state or public money. I don't know whether it's a disease or what.
Okay, now I'm going to jump in here, because I understand your frustration with this, and I'm of the same emotions when it comes to this.
That's right.
However, when we're in a situation whereby people are not held accountable, people are not going to jail, people are not resigning, people are not getting sacked, people are coming back to the same money that they siphoned through their corruption and living their lives. So really and truly, I mean, this looks like the way to get rich, and everybody wants to get rich. So if we don't solve those other issues surrounding the corruption, then aren't we just going to be in the same evil cycle going forward?
No, that is what it is. In fact, that's what Commonwealth we're saying, that the one way of moving forward is make corruption unattractive, very, very expensive. Because what you have in now across the Commonwealth developing countries, Africa, including Ghana, is that corruption is so easy. So people will do it to impunity, because you look at the cost of being corrupt and the benefit of being corrupt, then realize that it's better. The benefit outweigh the cost. If you look at other Commonwealth countries like Singapore, let me just give you one specific example. Is Singapore, if you are a public servant and they take pride in their service, and you work for say 20-15 years and you are corrupt, and the system is so rigid that if you are corrupt, you'll be caught. Because the system is just it's watertight. Now when you are caught, the first thing is that you lose all your benefit in the public service.
Pension, life insurance, everything.
The money that you have collected will be taken away from you, and then you throw you into jail. So if we look at all this, being corrupt and being caught, you are likely to be caught and being reduced to a pauper. Or you stay in the service, finish it off, do a good job, and look forward to your retirement, which is a little cozier. Now, what choice will you take?
Doc, bro, I mean, everything we said right now has fashioned corruption to look like a desirable job to have. whereby you can actually be financially sound for the rest of your life.
Yes.
But it's not a job, it's a lifestyle choice. And if it's a lifestyle choice, then we're really in...
Yeah, that's right.
We're in deep.
Yeah. No, it is, because I think corruption, you see, the corrupt people become very sophisticated, and they use various sophistications, and it also is behind the scenes, so they are always a step ahead of the agencies, and that's why we have to resource the agencies, train them, and that's what I've taken upon myself. In fact, I've trained the Yoko and the Shraj, right from the commissioner or the executive director to the heads of departments within. And before now, I'm going to go to the lower level of ranks and file the operators. All of them in Africa, we're doing that in Botswana. So I think we are getting somewhere. Okay. Then also the conference that we are holding, we're trying to bring all of them together to share ideas as to how others have done it, and Ghana can learn from them and move forward. Okay. So I think that's the basis.
Doc, I've got 2 more questions for you before we wrap up. Firstly, how does the ineffectiveness of inactiveness of long-term plans go towards the fight against corruption? Because I've said this many a time. As a country, we may have long-term plans, but every time there's a new government that comes in, old plans are scrapped and they start with something new, which further sets us back to square one. How is that affecting us on a monetary value? Can we even quantify it? Yes,
in fact, it's affecting us. In fact, you cannot even quantify. It's very fundamental. It's affecting us badly. And I wear my cap as a policy lecturer that every year I do. I have to lecture policy for a long time, both in UK and here. And I'm saying that no country on this earth can develop when you have subtemist approach to policy making. That means that every 4 years you are changing your policy. Take education.
Sorry, I had to laugh. It's bad.
It's bad. In fact, countries that have developed, they have 30 years education plan. Government comes, government go, you don't touch it. You can do just a small tweaking here and there, but you don't touch it, because in policy you need more than 10-15 years to see the results. If you have results now from, say, education or from health, that means the policy we took 10-15 years ago is what we are now reaping. So if we have to, as a country, we have to put our ass together, because they are going to affect our policy in terms of corruption, in terms of fundamentals of our economy, in terms of health, education, road infrastructure, developing. Everything is about policy, long term. So you hit the nail right on the head. We need to put our hands together, take politics aside, and let's all come together. Our parliament should be leading this way. They should stop, fighting here and there, because Ghana first, and then we have to do that and agree and use the intelligentsia that we have. We have all kinds of people all over. Ghanaians are doing all over the world. Why don't you bring them together? But it's again because we cannot put our hands together as a country. It's a pain.
Indeed. All right, I want to say a big thank you for coming in this morning. But before we do, I'll repeat this statement or this quote I got from the internet today. Corruption is the abuse of entrusted power for private gain. It hurts and affects everyone who depends on the integrity of people in position of authority. Dr. Roger Cranting, he is the advisor of Governance and Institutional Development Division of the Commonwealth Secretariat. I want to thank you so much for coming in this morning.